back to the Outriders podcast, official podcast of Digital and Creative Media Works, where each week we take something from pop culture and try to break it down to better understand it. My name is David.
There's a lot of energy in that opening, David.
Yeah, I'm bringing the heat today. What's up?
Hungry Jack, because the burgers are better.
The burgers are better.
Shit, that's
Hungry
actually
Jacks.
the...
Did you even say your name, or have we already?
Oh, hi, I'm Ben.
They just say the burgers are better at Hungry Jacks, and I don't disagree.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored.
No, I think they are better as well.
Oh, we got our boy, that Adley, in the chat. What's up, Adam? How's it going, fam?
Hey, Adam.
So, this week's episode is going to be something a little bit different. We're currently making fun of all things horror. So, I thought this week we would talk about the horror of Assassin's Creed Odyssey's quest.
The horror of Assassin's Creed's microtransactions.
So, let's talk about it now. So, I've been playing this game for about, 20 hours now. I've been doing, about an hour a night.
I haven't been playing this game, because I don't buy video games.
It's been interesting to me going through it as... so Origins I really liked. When we talked about Assassin's Creed last time, we both played a bit of it, and we were talking about, the way that game... it basically was The Witcher 3, gameplay structure-wise, and it redefined the way that the series was going to be moving forward.
Yeah.
And this is just more of the same. But with one, crucial difference. So previously with the other Assassin's Creeds, before we get into a summary, I just wanted to, give you guys a bit of background on the series if you don't know too much about them. The other games all had a very similar quest structure, where it was something bad happens to your character when they're young, they become an assassin, they hunt down Templars, whether it's for revenge or for whatever, they hunt down Templars, and then at the end of the game, they have some realization about, Templars and assassins and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's some big overarching narrative that they get rid of in, the 6th game, and then they just keep doing it anyway.
Yeah. They've gotten a bit better at that, where it's less obtrusive, but it's kind of still, it's somehow less obtrusive, but yet more interesting. I don't know, it's weird. Which I'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah.
So, before we get into the summary, Assassin's Creed Odyssey is an open-world adventure game published by Ubisoft Quebec, and developed by Ubisoft Quebec and published by Ubisoft. Set in the year 431 BCE, the plot tells the fictional history of the Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta. So it's very Zack Snyder's 300 aesthetically.
Yes.
It has a lot of that vibe to it. It's made by the same guys that did Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, which is Ubisoft Quebec.
And you can tell.
You can tell because there's boat and naval combat.
Boats in it.
Basically the same game
for
a lot of it, but with some key differences, which we'll get into. But before we do that...
being about 1,500 years earlier. More than that.
Also less guns, because guns didn't exist.
Yeah.
Let's get into the summary, and then I'll probably need to take a breather, because it's quite
2,000 years earlier. 2,300 years earlier. About 2,500 years. 300. No, definitely 300.
Good. Are you done with the math? Because it sounded like that hurt your brain or something.
Yeah, I was waiting. That one.
I was waiting for you to be error, cannot calculate.
No, I'm totally wrong. It's more like 2,000.
We're just gonna move into the summary before Ben has a hernia.
1700s is pirates.
In present day, Layla Hassan, the protagonist of AC Origins, recovers the spear of Leonidas and extracts the DNA of two individuals from it, Cassandra and Alexios, two siblings. Layla then picks a sibling. And
Wait, Alexios?
Yeah.
As in Ezio? Weird portmanteau of
it's
six different Assassin's Creed names?
It's Alex, but with I-O-U-S on the end.
Alexios. Okay. Yeah. That's a very Greek name.
Layla picks a sibling who becomes the player character, the Mercenary or the Mystios, and uses the Animus in an attempt to find the location of the Staff of Hermes. The Mystios starts as a young Spartan child, raised by parents Nikolaos and Marine, and inherits the spear from Marine as one of Leonidas' descendants. Though during a great prophecy telling, the character, the Mystios, is cast aside after you try to stop your sibling's execution at the orders of the Oracle. The player is then dropped off a cliff during this exchange.
Wow, I haven't seen that before.
Yeah. You survive, it was because it was based in history is what they did, some fucked up shit. You survive, ending up on the backwater island of Kefalonia, where you are raised by Marcos, a devious but kind businessman. The game itself starts in Marcos' dealings with a criminal leader, the Cyclops, and draws you into dealing in his affairs, and in the course of helping Marcos pay for his vineyard, you meet a mysterious man named Elpenor, who reveals he sees a great future for you. Elpenor then tasks you with killing the Wolf of Sparta, Nikolaos, your father. After which, you meet up with Elpenor, who reveals that he knew all along that you were adopted, and that your father is alive, and perhaps your real father's alive too, but in fact, Elpenor reveals he has been lying the whole time. What's true, what isn't? Thus the beginning of your Odyssey, traversing Greece with your crew of sailors in pursuit of the truth, and the more you travel, the more you become a legend, and in time perhaps, the more you learn what it means to wield the heritage of your father and the spear of Leonidas.
Right.
That's kind of the game. I don't want to spoil the actual plot, but that's like the way that the game sets itself up. And then unlike Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag structurally, this game literally like, where Black Flag was very non-linear in that like the further out you got, the more dangerous it was. This game literally like you kind of start on this Odyssey and then it branches out and you can go to like kind of different directions.
Right.
Like the map is even very much more linear, which I think serves the story pretty well. But also it's one of the first Assassin's Creed games like where the quests aren't great. Like typically they've been pretty okay with it, where it's like you have like 1 or 2 ongoing quests.
Yeah, well, I mean, so my experience with like Assassin's Creed is mostly the earlier games. It's like 2 for Unity.
Well, 4 and this are pretty similar, where like you go along and as you travel through areas, you pick up different quests and they just get added to your log or whatever.
Yeah,
like typical RPG stuff. But in the previous games, it was like a discrete task, so it'd be like,
do this,
go here, do this.
Yeah.
Whereas this game much
grab
more
a Ubisoft waypoint.
Yeah, this follows much more in The Witcher 3's footsteps and then Origin's footsteps as a result, where like quests are much more like a series of tasks and stuff. And this game even has a mode at the start where you choose to what extent you want to be guided. So I chose the exploration one where like you don't really get quest markers.
Right.
It just says this person should
Down
be on the
hill,
eastern island of the
thing.
Yeah, they give you directions, and then if you go and talk to players in the world, you can narrow down your search by getting more information. So it's like a lot more role playing.
Yeah.
Which The Witcher didn't do that as much. I don't remember.
Well, The Witcher is like, if you turn the map off in The Witcher, you realize that they kind of do it. It's very,
you don't notice it.
Very easy to just rely on the map.
I suppose it's more Zelda than like Breath of the Wild kind of thing.
There was an article about Red Dead Redemption 2. I don't know if you mentioned this to me, but where I saw the headline for it.
We talked about this in our post show last week.
Yeah, where they were talking about how like, oh, if you turn the map off in Red Dead 2, the NPCs give you like more directions about like where to go. Which is a lie. It's not how it works. They give you the directions anyway. It's just when you have the map,
you notice
you're just able to just blank it out and be like, yeah, whatever, go down to this place, and you're like, I'll just follow the waypoints anyway. It's just when you don't have a map, you notice like, okay, where do I have to go?
Exactly.
And it's the same thing like The Witcher, where it's you can play most of the game without being told.
Yeah. And that was why like turning off the mini map in Zelda was so interesting, is because that gave you. And this game has a similar waypoint system where like with the eagle creature that is kind of your drone thing from Watch Dogs 2.
God damn it, they still have the fucking...
It works way better than it used to, because now that there aren't map markers if you play in that mode,
right?
It basically feels like Zelda's telescope.
Yeah.
Where you pop it up and you're like, what's that landmark I'm looking for?
Zelda's telescope?
What is it? The thing in
but like,
Breath of the Wild?
It's not Zelda's, it's Link's.
Link's. I know about video game.
But Zelda's the game.
Zelda's the game, Link is the character.
Zelda's the game.
Did I just do the world's most like old man faux pas?
Did like the fake gamer, you called it a...
Don't at me.
I like...
Don't at me, bro.
I like the Bibio games.
I too play games. So one of the biggest criticisms of the game is that after about 5 hours, the story like grinds to a halt, as you have to kind of do a bunch of quests to get high enough level to like kill different things. And I was playing on the second hardest difficulty, and I saw the edges of that, but it never like stopped me from getting through an area. I just got better. Like,
well, this game's taken a lot of flack recently because of the microtransactions in it. I kind of joked about it earlier, the horrors of this game's microtransactions.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of criticism around how the game is quite grindy compared to the previous ones, and then they put in the microtransactions, which let you skip the grind.
That's why I think it's a problem, because no one looks at Dark Souls and says one of the biggest flaws of Dark Souls is that you have to play it too much to get further, right?
Yeah.
But if they had a microtransaction option where it was like, oh, you're stuck on the Dragon Ride of boss fight, just pay 10 quid and you get a high enough level to kill it, then that would be a whole different story. This game's microtransactions do work like that, but if you're not good at the game, it still isn't going to help you get through those fights. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I get where people are coming from, but...
Well, I mean, we had, the Shadow of War debacle where, like, this sort of true ending of that game, like, the final act is nearly impossible to achieve without...
It's just mental.
Without paying up and... They did fix that.
Yeah, well, because I came back to that game after they patched it and finished it, and it's a really good ending. Yeah. Like, it's actually one of my favorite video game endings. You become, like, a fucking proper ring wraith. It's fucking dope. Like, you become, like, an evil motherfucker in that game. And it works really well. But at the time, they had erected this thing where they were like, oh, it doesn't matter. People will get there. People love our game enough. But
they'll grind it out. It's like, nah.
But that doesn't make sense if you want people to play the game and have, like... The assumption then is that the gameplay is so fun that people are going to want to do it forever.
Yeah.
And no one wants to do the same thing forever.
No.
So it doesn't matter how good your game is. And I think the for me, when it was really noticeable that this kind of becomes an issue isn't in the first hours of the game. It's kind of where I'm up to now, where when you're properly on your Odyssey and you're like in this ship, like what the game wants you to feel like is that you get into this boat and you sail through these Grecian islands and you go on these adventures and you're like this mercenary with this crew and you're in pursuit of like, who are my parents, who's my family, and it's like this kind of grandiose adventure. And that's what it feels like. But every time you get to a new part of the ocean, all the ships are like 5 levels higher than you. And you're like, great, now I have to dock and do all the quests on this island to progress.
Right, yeah.
And it doesn't feel natural in the way that Assassin's Creed 4 did, where you'd be like, oh, that's an island, I'll see what's there. And you stop there and then you start a quest and then you end up over here and then you end up over here. Like, if it was very much more like a naturalized system.
Yeah, and if
they didn't have barriers.
And if something was like super high level, you'd just avoid it. And
you'd run away. But
yeah,
you can't
you'd generally be fine. It wasn't just like a wall of high level enemies. It was
But,
just
yeah.
like one that you're like, I'm just going to avoid you.
And they had, because they have that in AC Odyssey where they've re-brought that concept back in of like, I think they were called lieutenants in, or they were like phylakes in Assassin's Creed Origins, which are like bounty hunters or whatever.
Right.
But AC Odyssey basically does the same thing, but uses the Nemesis system from Shadow of War. So they have these lieutenants.
There it is. We found it, guys. You can
not-
you can stop commenting on that one video of ours. It's back.
Still don't at me. And basically, wherein like the more people you kill, the higher level people that chase you down. Whereas Odyssey implements this in a really weird like combination of like GTA 5's wanted level and the Nemesis system, where
Right.
like the more murders you do, not like in a row, but just like in general, the more high level mercenaries hunt you down across the map. But when I say across the map, I mean like literally they'll just like run to you across the map.
Just barrel their way
Like
across.
it's not. They just they run at you. They don't like walk. Like in AC Origins, it was really cool because they would kind of traverse the landscape on like a horse and come find you. But if they don't have a horse in Odyssey, they just literally run till they find you. And it's really weird. And it felt like a relic of like them wanting to put a limit on like how much because in this game, in a normal Assassin's Creed game, there's good guys and bad guys.
Yeah.
In this one, like you can help out the Grecians or the Athenians, but like you can kill anyone anytime, which is like really
They're
fun
weird,
and interesting for an Assassin's Creed game. Because that's like The Witcher works like that. You pull out your sword, you start swinging,
Yeah.
chop up some bitches. Whereas this game does the same thing, but they were like, well, we didn't really have like a bounty system, so let's like slap one on there. And they just run across the landscape to find you. It's so fucking weird, dude. Like, I want you to imagine in your head, like, a Ubisoft level animated, beautifully animated dude running at you.
Yeah.
But, like,
But
from
just
the
from
top of a hill,
miles
like,
away.
across a valley.
Yeah.
And you, like, watch him. Like, you got
Just-
your eagles
you
zoomed
can
in,
see
and you
him,
watch him
yeah.
run to you. It's fucking funny, dude.
It's like that scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail where he's like running towards the castle that's like
Yeah,
and then
it just keeps going.
and then
exactly
aha! Yeah, it's what I'm imagining.
It's very funny, dude. But that like brings me back to like this issue the game has, like, that isn't really something that Assassin's Creed has had before, because previously, like, they were very gamey, where it was like you pick up the game and it's like you're playing a video game. Like AC.
Well, I
Syndicate-
mean, you know, like AC 1, 2, 3, 4, or like before Unity, like they were like, oh, you know, you get in the Animus and you plug into your old stuff, and
Zippity-doo,
you're like, it's a video game. And then like in Unity, it was just like, it's a video game. You're like, I guess it's a video game.
yeah, and you're like, is it though?
Yeah.
I like the premise of AC4 though, where they were like, you're doing research for a video game by playing these memories.
So is AC4 the one where like
That's where you work at Ubisoft.
Abstergo is Ubisoft?
Sorry, that's where you
basically?
work at Abstergo.
Yeah, and it's just Ubisoft.
Yeah, and you just
What's
do-
Unity then? Unity is where you.
Unity's the one where you never see your player character; it's all in cutscenes.
Yeah, and Origins is like where she's like a researcher
In Egypt, and that's
and
the
you
same,
have like a pop up
and
animus.
that's the same character.
what they're
that-
doing,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the same character that you play as in this one as
Right,
well.
yeah.
And it works actually really well because it's flavor to the context of the world. It's not a mean and unto an end, like
Yeah.
like it was with Desmond, where it was like, here's the story, whether you like it or not. This one, it's like, if you want to, you can duck out of the Animus and check out what's up with Layla, and she's got like a really interesting story, and she's a really well written character,
Man,
so
we-
it works well.
Sucks to be the writers for that character to put all this heart and soul into the character
Yeah,
that
nobody
most
fucking plays
people
him.
actively avoid. Yeah.
But the other thing too is that this game really suffers from like a looping issue. And to explain this in like the most broad sense, I want to touch on like one of the most basic theories in psychology, which is Vroom's expectancy theory. And his theory is more of like a meditation on like psychology and experimentation than like a practical thing. But you'll see what I mean the minute that I get to the point. You'll be like,
Right.
oh, video games always,
Yeah,
all
yeah,
the time. The idea is that if the participants in a study can predict what they believe the test is trying to show, they're more likely to exhibit behaviors that they perceive are like expected or correct. So like if you kind of, if someone's doing a test and you go, oh, they're looking to see for this, you tend to either do the thing they want or do the
Or
opposite.
like actively don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he puts this into an equation eventually, which is motivational force equals expectancy versus instrumentality versus valence. So motivational force equals expectancy times instrumentality
Say
times
verse
valence.
isn't part of
I knew what I meant.
It's not an equation.
Where expectancy is
Betting odds.
David has not done maths in a long time. Expectancy, which is the belief that one's efforts will result in the attainment of desired performance goals, i.e., if I work hard, I'll get a good job. Instrumentality is the belief that one will receive a reward if performance expectation is met, i.e., if I work hard at my job, my boss will give me a raise.
Yes.
Valence is about the value one puts on the reward of an outcome, i.e., I don't really care about money, so I don't care that my boss gave me a raise. I really wanted more time off to spend with my kids or whatever.
Okay.
So it's about like what you expect, the expectancy of the outcome. So like, will the outcome be what I thought it was? The instrumentality is if I do the thing and know what the outcome is, will I get it? And then the valence is the value you put on that outcome.
No, hey, video games.
Yeah. So Vroom's theory is a big underpinning of why video game quest design works and comes into H. Bomber Guy's idea of play conditioning. Basically, it's what makes every time you play a game slightly different and why everyone has different emotional experiences with different games because of that valence thing. So what you care about in the way that outcomes like happen is why everyone has like different experiences. So like Odyssey suffers from this in a big fucking way. So as an example, I play games for story. So my valence value is very different than someone who likes high octane multiplayer action or like they're like a social aspect of like a massively multiplayer game. So the valence why they go into the game is different. So one of the biggest problems with Odyssey, and I think why so many people fucking panned it critically, is the valence for an Assassin's Creed game is you play through the story, it's kind of a crazy romp, you do some cool stuff in history, you end the game.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, you do... I think there is an element of like, at least in the earlier games, of like, it's a stealth game. That very quickly disappeared. But they kind of brought it back in Unity.
It works
some other
really
games.
well in the new games.
Yeah, but like there was definitely like an expectation of just like, oh, it's...
Yeah, they got rid of that for a long time, didn't they?
Yeah, for a while it was very much just like, it's just an action game,
AC4
guys.
didn't really have stealth at all.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it had some stealthier sections.
You could hide in a brush, but like, you know, who gives a shit? But yeah, I think that's definitely another part of it as well. Like,
yeah.
Especially like Assassin's Creed 1, that was like such a technical advancement with like the climbing and like the crowd simulation. Like I remember being like really enthralled with like, oh, you can climb any building and you can hide in crowds and it's really cool and there's all this cool assassin-y stuff
so
you
cool.
can do. And then like that game was pretty shit.
Right.
But then AC2 was like, whoa, we can do it better.
Everything up till, and then AC4 was like that pinnacle of like, whoa, Ubisoft are doing new cool stuff. And Ubisoft Quebec was like, look at this thing we made, guys. Isn't it cool? And everyone was like, dude.
Ships.
Everyone was like, dude, that's fucking awesome. And then Assassin's Creed Unity was like, let's reset the formula, go back to our roots. The launch was bad. We talk about this so many times, but that game is almost flawless in its gameplay and execution. Yeah. It's everything that you remember AC1 being in a video game.
And it's probably the best...
it's the best core Assassin's Creed experience.
And it's like the best location time period, in my opinion.
Fuck, dude.
Yeah, French Revolution.
And the crowd simulation and the gameplay and the co-op in that game is phenomenal.
Makes the most sense.
It's the Assassin's Creed game that makes the most sense as an Assassin's Creed story, setting, place, time, gameplay, everything. And it's just a shame that it launched poorly. But going back to it now, like I've been replaying games that I hated when they launched because of the performance. Yeah. So I recently finished replaying Arkham Knight. Still holds up, really good. Gonna play AC Unity this week. Before Red Dead comes out or before Dead Devil comes out. But like I'm excited for it. Because I remember that game being phenomenal. I'm excited to do more like co-op because if you want it,
because I've got it.
We should do some co-op.
Laura's got it. We can do co-op.
We should do a co-op.
We did co-op a while back and we enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's great.
Down for more co-op.
We might put some of that up on the Patreon maybe if I record it. Don't know. But that could be really fun. I really like that co-op of that game. But one of the things that Odyssey, or I guess like that they sacrificed in pursuit of, what I thought was weird is that AC Unity was a game with co-op, and then AC Syndicate was a game where you play as two people that didn't have any co-op. And then I was like, you guys put the thing in the story to have another person join you.
Well, when did Bioshock Infinite come out?
That was just before Syndicate.
Yeah, so that's why. Yeah, there you go. They probably had co-op for a while.
And they were
went,
like,
wait a minute, no, we just have to get rid of it.
Get rid of
The
it.
other character just has to be like a surrogate for the story.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yes, like to me, like that expectancy stuff is like why people feel so betrayed by this game as an AC like entry, because the quest structure and like the expectancy stuff just doesn't line up at all. But for me, it works really well because the feeling of being on this Odyssey that's kind of a harrowing adventure is definitely there. But then that touches on this other issue the game has, which is we were talking about it before we started recording, with this idea of qualia and the problem of like psychic distance. So in a nutshell, qualia is the philosophical idea that mental states like perception, sensation, thoughts, and emotion all have a subjective element to them, or in like more human words, that every instance of an experience is unique.
Yeah.
Take a section of Dark Souls when you play it, right? No matter how precisely you copy someone else's movements, you almost never have the exact same experience.
Yeah.
You can get really close, but it's not the same. It's not the same experience of the action at the time. You can't replicate that. When you do a thing, it is yours entirely, and your perception of it is yours entirely. And Daniel Dennett is famous for saying on qualia, he says, quote, "An unfamiliar term for something that could not be more familiar to each of us. The way things seem to us." End quote. And from a game design and like storytelling lens, it means that every time someone consumes something you've made, they experience it differently.
Yeah.
And everyone who's consuming it is having a different experience. Which sounds really obvious until you start to think about what games and interactive media do differently than like a film. Because like a film, the difference in the way that you consume it is usually kind of minute.
It's usually because of you as well. Like,
yeah, it's not the game.
Yeah, it's, well, the film. It's very much a case of just, the film exists within a bubble, and then it comes at you from a certain point of your life in a certain age and a certain time in a certain environment.
But you can put you put the two of us in the same room and we both watch 8th grade at this point in our lives.
We're gonna have different experiences.
But they were similar experiences. Like they were similar enough that it doesn't like a lot of the four categories were pretty similar. Like sensation, like sense is pretty close.
Oh, for film, that's
perception's pretty close.
Yeah.
Thoughts and emotions tend to be less, but like for me, emotions was probably higher. And for me, thoughts is always higher than most people, like because that's all I do is introspect. So,
yeah.
But we probably had like generally pretty similar experiences, whereas games are like totally different. Because one of the things they do is they remove some of the barriers to experiencing a moment. So, as an example, when this whole the Spider-Man PlayStation 4 game came out, one of the things all the reviewers said is like, you feel like Spider-Man, right?
Which is weird given that you're just pressing buttons on a controller.
So what does that mean? It's not a one-to-one comparison, but they're talking about this sensation combined with the emotion of, like, the emotional and the sensation psychic gaps are really small for those players, where they go, this is what I imagine it feels like to be Spider-Man. So they were reduced enough that they say, oh, I felt like Spider-Man. What they meant was, I felt the same emotions that I think Spider-Man would feel, and I felt, as I was playing it, that I was experiencing the same sensations that he might feel. And it's not one-to-one, but that psychic gap was reduced enough that you're comfortable saying, I feel that thing. I feel this way, and I feel like Spider-Man. Whereas Odyssey does this weird thing where it tries to reduce the player's psychic distance just by perception and sensation, by kind of like... They want to create the sense of going on this great Odyssey, and that's like a lot to do with like scale. I remember like AC4, like it felt like a big fucking ocean. Because it was. It was a fucking giant ocean. There's lots of empty space. But Odyssey has the problem of like, the Grecian islands are like kind of close together. So they have to make the scale by making you slower and like by making things less quick. And like the way that they do it is the other direction. And it has this weird effect of like, instead of feeling like you did an AC4, which is like the swashbuckling pirate carving your fortunes across the seas, which, fuck, I just want to play AC4, man. Whereas this game wanted you to feel like you're on this harrowing journey to like seek out the truth about your family. The problem is it feels like you're on a harrowing journey to seek about the truth about your family. That's not necessarily always fun, right? Like that's not always a fun thing to be doing in a video game when you boot it up after a long day at work and you're like, time to see what my good friend Cassandra's doing and murder some fools. And you spend half an hour in your ship getting nowhere, fighting off ships, and by the time you get to the location you're going, the thing that you get is like a really sad cutscene where something bad happens.
You're like, oh, I kind of wish I didn't do this.
Yeah, like it's cool, but it's like, did they not, like, I don't know, that in reducing that psychic distance, they kind of reduce it a bit too much. Is that something, like, I'm just trying to think of like other examples where I mean, Dark Souls is like a great example of the sensation issue where like, you get so fucking frustrated with Dark Souls because if the player was real, they'd be frustrated.
But Dark Souls is weird because it's like your player character, like, you know, you talk about the psychic distance between, you know, sort of what, you know, and sort of like an AC game. They're trying to get you as close to the player character as possible in terms of the emotions that you're feeling.
Yeah.
Whereas with Dark Souls, it's like you're not feeling the same things that
It's
your
an
player
emotional
is feeling.
husk. Yeah.
Yeah, like they're just a body. You know, they don't have that character doesn't show any emotion. So you're getting close to just this idea of what the game is trying to do, which is just kind of piss you off,
Kind of make you angry. Yeah.
whereas you know, you can kind of look at games, like games either go one of two ways. Like they either go that direction of like, we're going to actually, you know, we're going to give you a character to associate with,
Yeah.
or we're not. You know, it's one or the other. And it's, you know, when you have, you know, like AC2, so, you know, you got Ezio, it's like Ezio is a pretty wild character. Like, not many people would be
You're
able
not
to
supposed
really.
to associate with it.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's pretty hard to associate with a sort of. I mean, like I've met some people who have sort of like.
If you're a nationalistic womanizer, you probably feel right at home with it.
Yeah, like I've met some people who have like sort of, you know, they really liked Ezio and they're like, oh, you know, I totally see myself as an Ezio, and it's like those are that I can tell you now that those people are not good people.
That's not a good thing to be.
Yeah, so it's a weird thing where like I feel like most people probably didn't associate with Ezio, but they enjoyed the romp. You know, it's
Right.
like enjoying the character. Whereas if you're
It's like the opposite of Origins, where but Bayek, which we talked about during the episode, but like he's such a heartfelt
Yeah.
father character.
That
He's
you
a
can-
kind dude, and
Yeah.
you go,
you're
I
like,
wish I
wanna-
was.
yeah, it's like I wish I was
Yeah,
him.
because he's such a nice dude.
And then you know, look at like The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
With like season 1, no, not the others. With like Lee, and it's like you really
Same thing.
fucking feel it. Like
you want to
it
be
just
as good as Lee.
Well, it's the kind of thing where it's like you don't want to be Lee because there's nothing particularly like I'm not desirable, but like he doesn't, you know, he's not.
But you
I'm like digging a hole. I don't really know how to explain this.
What you mean is like,
But you feel for him. You understand that it's like, oh, he's just a dude in this really rough situation, and I hope that one day I could be as
Yes.
like
well, because
like selfless as him.
because every day I am just a dude in situations.
Yeah.
That is who I also am. Just I happen to not be in a Walking Dead situation.
Yeah, and it's like Lee is able to really like redeem himself, and you're like, oh, that's like it's
Yeah, it's-
catharsis.
yeah,
catharsis.
Catharsis. You nailed it.
Catharsis.
You
Thank, I
meant to
nailed
s-
it the
You
first
meant to
time.
say it's cathartic, but instead you said it's catharsis, and then your
Damn
brain
it.
went something was
minute,
wrong.
something was
Worms."
wrong.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely.
Whereas with
the
this,
issue.
it's like you can't really associate much with the main character because they're a fucking god essentially.
Yeah,
But then they throw this harrowing shit. You're like, I don't want to be them.
it kind of
Because it's like they're awesome and super powerful, but
their
then they
life
just
sucks.
their life sucks.
yeah, it's kind of that problem of like it's like the Tony Stark thing where it's like Tony Stark is sometimes really
Oh yeah,
hard to
Iron Man
associate
1,
with.
everyone wants to be Tony Stark. I am like
By Iron Man 3, you're like,
Civil War,
God.
everyone's like, I don't want to be Tony Stark
What a-
anymore.
what a terrible
like
life
you
to
just
have.
kind of
lived.
hate him. You don't
Yeah.
hate him, but you're like, I don't
You
really
don't
actually
wanna
want to be
be
him
him.
anymore.
Yeah. And that for me is like why maybe it's
You want to be Captain America because he's like the new Tony Stark,
He's
where it's
real
just
wholesome.
like, he's put through and he's a good
Yeah.
guy.
Exactly. Whereas I think that, you know, and maybe now that you said that, maybe for me it's like an observer bias where I liked Origin's character so much that when I play this, it feels dark. Because like Origins is so we were talking about this. I was talking about this with you during the post show last week about Doctor Who, where Moffat's Doctor Who was dark because it's like dark on purpose, whereas the first episode of the most recent season of Doctor Who with Jodie Whittaker is grim. Doesn't make it dark. I feel like Assassin's Creed Origins was grim because like dark things happen to Bayek, but it's got a tone that's very endearing. Whereas this game feels much darker, but like lacks the undercurrent of like because it's trying to be dark and like harrowing. It lacks the authenticity that you need for that to work. But like Bayek was happy and kind in spite of the terrible things that happened to him. But Cassandra is a bit shitty and a bit quippy because of the terrible things that happened to her.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite have that same like pathos where you're like, I could see myself as a Cassandra. Because a lot of times when she quips, I'm like, I would be so intimidated right now. I don't know what the fuck she's doing. Whereas when Bayek does it, you're like, he's trying to be positive.
And then they add the whole like romance aspect, which
I haven't really. It hasn't interfered with the game.
I
too
saw an
much.
article that just said the 10 best romances that you can get in AC Odyssey, and I was just like, nah, video games are a mistake. Like that's so fucking
It's
dumb.
not like a Dragon Age thing where like you.
and I like
barely in the game.
I didn't look at the article because I don't like supporting that kind of journalism, but like I guarantee like 90% of them would have just been like gay relationships if you played as the female.
Yeah.
Because that's a really big problem that we
Pandery
fucking
boy.
have. Yeah, where it's just like, oh, you know, you can be a female and everyone's like, cool. Well, and some people are like, oh, fucking women in my video games. And then it's just like, you can romance people. You can be hella gay. And everyone's like, yeah, hell yeah. And you're like, is there a reason that people are celebrating this? I think there is a reason.
It reminds me, so you know how like in The Witcher 3, you can romance the different sorceresses and it changes the way the story plays out?
Yeah.
Romance in this is just like incidental. It's more like...
yeah, well, like you really got to like, with The Witcher 3, it's like, you know, the big meme of like if you meet someone who plays The Witcher 3, it's just like, which girl did you pick? Which is like a bit of a like on one hand it's like but the other hand it's like, okay, whatever. It's not like
part of the story.
Yeah, it's part of the story. Like it is an aspect where, you know, it comes a point where you actually actively choose.
Yeah.
Or you can choose to actively choose. You can just avoid it.
You can choose neither.
Yeah. But in this game it's like because it's a side thing, you don't have to do it.
Feels very
But because it's everywhere, there's like so much of it, it's just kind of weird. You can just be a bit rapey.
Well, the weird thing is it doesn't really come up until like the weirdest thing about the romance doesn't really come up until like 15 hours in. So like there's a
they're kind of like trying to like, all right, we're gonna actually develop this character before you become a sex pest.
You gotta get used to this character before you work out like who they're gonna like. It is very like in their defense, or not in their defense, I don't want, but like one of the things they do well with it is it never feels out of character. I've only played the female character. But it never feels out of character when she is flirting with someone. She doesn't just like immediately become a nice person.
There's not just like a button where it's just like turn on the sex machine.
Yeah, she just is herself, but also it's a bit flirty. Like it's not like she totally changes her personality. It's like, and now I'm into romance. It's like, no, she's just a bit of a dick.
Start the romance minigame. Yeah. Let's go.
She's just still a bit of a dick, but it's a bit more flirtatious. And that for me, I'm like, it's kind of like when Geralt's flirting, where you're like, okay, yeah, because he's like this always. Where he's just gruff and unpleasant.
He's also just an old man.
Just a bit charming. Before we wrap up and get to the recommendations for this week, I did want to just touch on this idea that, like, we talk a lot about Zelda and games like that as examples of like when you can kind of bury systems within like the way that a world already functions. Right. So like when you're playing Zelda, like doing like the elements and stuff like that, it's like systems heavy games that aren't like UI or menu heavy or like process heavy.
Yeah, they're like systems heavy, but they're not Dwarf Fortress.
Yes, and we discussed...
They're not The Sims.
We discussed this during one of our post shows about Red Dead 2.
Yeah.
Don't know which week it might have been.
Last week. It was last week's.
We'll probably talk about that a lot more in the coming months in our post shows because like the game's coming out. Yeah. And it's what we're going to be doing for a while. I just wanted to make a note that someone did send me a really interesting email about that, which I will read either during the post show this week or next week. I wanted to kind of wait for the game to come out, but they had some really interesting thoughts on it. So I just wanted to note that if you're listening to this but you're not a Patreon person who sent me that email, we will get to it, I promise. But if you got
we'll email you the clip. I'm saying that now so you can hear it.
Not gonna happen. Ben's throwing me under the bus on that.
Okay, never mind.
But if you got any recommendations, what have you been watching and listening to and playing?
I've been binging the new Muse music.
Ooh,
so they've been releasing singles on their new album. Don't know what it's called. Haven't followed that far. But they've got like 5 songs out. They're
Benjamin,
all really
I did the minimum
good.
research hill.
Yeah, they're all very good. It's just classic Muse. Well, it is classic Muse. They're presenting it as kind of like this synthwave 80s kind of aesthetic, but like no, it's just classic Muse. Their music videos are quite entertaining. Terry Crews is in one of them. Can recommend watching that one. I think that's
sounds fun.
That's Pressure. I think it's just called Pressure by Muse.
Nice.
It's got Terry Crews in it.
Hey, I'll watch anything with him in it, to be honest. I've been watching...
He's very buff.
Speaking of Terry Crews, weirdly, I've been watching the season 5 of Brooklyn Nine-Nine just came out on Netflix.
I've been so lazy with Brooklyn Nine-Nine recently.
Rushing it, dude. It's good.
Yeah, I was up to date like a year ago.
I chewed through it in like 2 days.
Yeah, I think I'm like halfway through season 4 or something. Yeah.
Other than that, I've been playing AC Odyssey, obviously. And I've been rewatching Daredevil season 2 because season 3 comes out in like a few days. Maybe it's today. Oh shit, it might come out tonight. Oh boy.
I mean, tomorrow I'm going to be playing Dark Souls on the Switch because that comes out. So I'm going to get angry while I poop.
Well, unlike usual.
Unlike the usual poops.
Yeah.
It's pretty mellow poops usually. But we get some real salty poops going on.
Salty shits involved. Yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing. Like, the only other thing I've been checking out is there's a really interesting so I read a lot of Waypoint, which is like they're like Polygon but not bad.
Yeah,
and
that's one way to put it.
They put up a bunch of really interesting articles this week in the lead up to like Red Dead 2 and stuff. I highly recommend checking them out. Not about the game, but about like culture and stuff around it. It's really interesting. But as always, where can people find us?
Facebook,
at DCMworks Social.
YouTube?
YouTube.com/DCMworks.
Twitter. Yes, I'm doing this correctly.
At DCM_works.
Patreon.
Patreon.com/DCMworks. If you want to see this show live or see our post show, the only way to do that is either to subscribe to our YouTube channel and then watch this show live every week, where we take a 5-minute break and we come back and we do the post show.
The only way to watch this live is to watch it live.
Watch it live, baby. Or we post the video afterwards to our Patreon subscribers. Our tier starts at $3 a month. You can subscribe for $3 a month to get access to a bunch of back content. There's all kinds of interesting stuff up there. We've got stuff like a weird spooky audiobook that's new episode just came out of that. We got all kinds of stuff in the works. I think it's over 50 hours of extra content. And then also each week you get the post show that you can watch at your leisure. And a bit of behind the scenes. You get to vote on the book club that we do and all kinds of stuff like that. So make sure if you wanted to catch all that, you can go to patreon.com/DCMworks. You also get an exclusive discount code for my book, Maynard Trigg. If you want to buy that, maynardtrigg.com. It's here in the shot.
I looked at the wrong camera. MaynardTrigg.com. Buy the book.
Thank you.
It's a good one. I've started reading it.
Yeah, it's better than I ever could have done by myself. Thank God I paid an editor. So make sure you check that out. It's a steampunk, Fallout kind of Firefly vibe to it, but it's a character-driven story that I'm really proud of.
For the people that grew up reading Harry Potter.
And looking for a new world to explore, man. But I gotcha. But if people just wanted to follow us individually, I'm at DCM Hate Pie.
I'm at Literal Citrus.
We will see you guys next week.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
We're still stuck.
Every week till we die.
I'm not allowed to go home.
We've been cursed by this show.